Welcome to the World United. Welcome to the World United.
So here we go to introduce on to our next speaker for today is Justin BERGHOLCS. Justin works as a mental health consultant, offering his years of knowledge in the health fields and that gained from living and working in the Himalayas and the Tibetan communities. His main area of focus has been in the trauma space, offering his skills and awareness to individuals, groups, and business in Australia and internationally. He has worked in areas of mental health, drug and alcohol, palliative medicine, and disabilities, and aims to bring evidence-based scientific research of the brain, mind, and Eastern philosophies together in an attempt to facilitate positive change in people's lives. Recently, he has also been working with an Indigenous elder professor, Dennis Foley, combining First Nations, Eastern, and neuroscience with men. He endeavors to continue to provide high-quality, evidence-based mental health education to everyone, increasing mental health literacy throughout the wider community. In a world that is increasingly stressful, finding peace of mind and a sense of well-being are becoming a priority. So here I welcome Justin to share his talk about the importance of breath in managing stress and trauma in today's world. Welcome, Justin.
Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, wherever you are on the planet. My name's Justin BERGHOLCS. I'm coming to you from Gumarigal country here in northern Sydney in New South Wales, Australia. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and I ask that the male and the female ancestors allow me to walk and talk on the land of the Gumarigal people. People who have been here for millennia and who have been very generous and gracious with their knowledge and wisdom to me and so many other people. So maybe we get on with things. I think my bio tells people a bit about who I am. I'm a mental health consultant working in the northern Sydney region. My background is acute mental health. Spent over 20 years working and living in the Himalayas. So I have a bit of an understanding of the Buddhist and Tibetan perspectives of mind and how to care for mind, and now integrating some of those things and my knowledge of the neurosciences. So let's share my screen and get going on all of this. So breath, the importance of breath and maintaining balance and well-being. Look, we're in challenging times, global warming, COVID-19, geopolitical instability. All of these play a part in how we function and engage as individuals and communities. It's my belief that we're functioning from a trauma base, and as such, the brain does different things, and we function differently in trauma. And it's a good thing to review and have a bit of a look at what we're doing and how we're doing it, and how breath has such an important role in all of this. Just a quick recap on what mental health is. Mental health is important for social and emotional well-being. It's about how well a person's thinking, feeling and behaving. A person is said to have good mental health when they're in control of their emotions, can think clearly, and can have strong positive relationships. Good mental health is when somebody can work to the best of their ability, cope with normal stresses and be productive and contribute to community and culture. The WHO in 2007 said mental health, the definition was a state of well-being in which the individual realises his or her own abilities, can cope with normal stresses in life, and can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make contribution to his or her community. As I mentioned, I've lived in the Himalayas for some 20 years, and the Tibetans talk about ground path result. If I have good ground, the path is smooth, I get to my destination. If the house has good foundations, it's not going to fall over. And from a Tibetan perspective, breath is crucial to ground. And in preliminary practices, one of the main things that we look at is to focus on breath and its importance. So from a Tibetan perspective, ground, in preliminary practices, there's a thing called Nundro. Nundro is 100,000 mantras, 100,000 mandala offerings, and 100,000 prostrations. Australia's first people understand the literal ground on which they're on, literally and spiritually. They're connected to the ground. The path in Tibetan Buddhism are the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, which basically is a prescription as to how to lead your life. You know, right speech, right action, right mindfulness, those sorts of things. In Australia's first people talk about law, or there are 13 truths. The last truth is law, the irrefutable natural law that maintains balance and wholeness. The result of these things is healthy individuals and healthy communities. What shows up in the workplace? Anxiety, depression, and substance use. Pretty much in the West, that's what we see. When we look at neuroscience and how our brain is functioning, we can split it up into three sections. We have the neocortex, or the frontal lobes, the middle of my brain, which is a more primitive brain, an emotive brain, the limbic brain, and the back of my brain is about movement and getting me ready to do the run or the fight. So fight, flight. We have fight, flight, freeze, and then fornicate. And here in Australia, we'll see, or we are seeing, a rise in births. We're just hitting 9 months, 10 months after traumatic bushfires and then COVID. So we've had crisis on crisis that we've seen here in Australia. When people are traumatized, they go searching for oxytocin, the love drug. What usually happens after traumatic events is you see a spike in birth rates. So I think we're seeing the start of that here in Australia. But let's just look at it in terms of how we function. Usually, by the time we've reached early adulthood or our 30s, we function from one of two places: anger or anxiety. And they're like brother and sister, but live at opposite ends of a polar scale. When I'm anxious, my brain functions differently. When I'm angry, it's almost similar, because what's happening is there's a depletion of resources going from my frontal lobes to the back of my brain to get me ready to do the fight or flight. When I'm anxious, I'm breathing from my upper chest. It's a short, sharp. I might stop breathing. I haven't had a breath. I might continue that way for some time. You might be watching television and then all of a sudden you'll go, and I can see some people going, that's what happens to me. What's happening is that the resources are going from front to back. The amygdala is saying, I need more resources at the back. I'll get the sweaty palms, my heart rate will start going, my viscera will be squeezed, the central part of my body, my gut, gets squeezed, pushes the resources to the extremities to get me to ready to run or fight. When I'm angry, there's no resources in the front of in my frontal lobes, because I've actually stopped breathing. It's and I'll box or I'll do the mouth fight. And then people flip to the other end without spending any time in the middle. And if I spend time in the middle, then I'm going to be looking after breath. I'm going to be caring for my breath. Yeah. On that little diagram in front of us, we look at Aboriginal ceremonies: head, heart, gut, feet, brains. The feeling and knowing brains are connected with the thinking brain. And I'll explain a little bit more about that later. And it has something to do with a part of the brain called the insula. But I'll talk about that shortly. So therapeutic mindfulness, the guy that brought mindfulness to the West was a guy called John Kabat-Zinn. Spent a lot of time in the Himalayas, was a student of the Dalai Lama, and his definition is the awareness that emerges through paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally to the unfolding experience moment by moment. Professor Dennis Foley, who I mentioned earlier as the custodian of this land, says that, they practice a thing called kabrananga. Kabrananga means resting the mind. And when we rest our mind in country, you can hear the ants walking on the earth. In trauma, this is a little diagram in terms of what happens. We have the traumatic event. The neocortex is downregulated and shuts down, sending resources from front to back. The amygdala gets upregulated and is trying to direct resources to where they're needed most. And the hippocampus, which is about memory retention and so forth, is downregulated. So in trauma, you don't remember the traumatic event. You might remember a smell or a sound or a taste, but usually you don't remember the whole thing. We know that the brain is plastic and malleable, neuroplasticity. Leaders in the game like Norman Doig have shown that and wrote a very famous book, The Brain That Changes Itself. And when we're looking at changing the brain and changing the architecture of the brain, what we're talking about there is awareness and observation. That's what this thing is meant to do. That's what we're good at. We're good at paying attention. We're good at observing. And Indigenous cultures around the world have been doing that for millennia. Repetition of story, repetition of song and dance. And that increases a part of the brain called the insula. The insula increases in real estate and then connects with the heart. The heart is connecting with the field. As the brain changes, the mind changes. As the mind changes, we change. We're changing from the inside out. The practice of awareness or meditation. Meditation is an active word. It means to cultivate or dig up. In Tibetan, we say sati, or to become friends with or make known. So I'm realizing that time is at an essence and we're coming to an end. So it's important to understand that awareness and focusing on breath and caring for breath. If I'm in control of my breath, I'm in control of my emotional state. If I'm in control of my emotional state, life's okay. And when we look at it, if I take a breath in, I'm alive. If I breathe out, I'm dead. And I'm dead until I take my next breath in. So I control that. I'm asking people to remember to care for breath. Care for breath, change from the inside out, look at connecting with your heart, connecting with the field, and then life is going to be far better. So I'll stop sharing my screen and oops. Let's just come back to thank you very much, everybody. I hope the rest of the day is a good one for you. Remember, breathe, smile, and breathe again. Bye from Damarical Land.